My name is Nicole Davies. I'm Berklee Institute for Creative Entrepreneurship's Managing Director, and I also run Berklee's Open Music Initiative. And I'm joined by my co-host today, George Howard, music business professor at Berklee, as well as serial entrepreneur. Welcome, George.
Hi, great to be here.
And then we've got a great slew of students joining us as well. And this is our second go at doing this little session. George and I, before everybody's life changed with the pandemic, we're talking about some different ways that we could sort of activate what we do at Berklee's Institute for Creative Entrepreneurship, and talking a bit about, how can we link industry to what the students are doing? How can we better connect a lot of the Berklee students in general? Because we've got all of these amazing Berklee entrepreneurs. Berklee's Institute for Creative Entrepreneurship was founded a little over 5 years ago to infuse a startup mindset throughout the Berklee community, students, staff, faculty, across all of the campuses. So Boston Conservatory at Berklee, Berklee Online, Berklee Valencia, and then beyond, the industry, the open music community, alumni, and those sort of garage music tech hackers as well. So we were cooking some stuff up and thinking of some ways that we could connect the industry to what we were doing, connect students to each other. And then everything changed pretty drastically overnight. And so rather than stop, we said, all right, well, let's figure out how to do this digitally. And so this little mini series was born, and here we are. This is the second one. Last week, we did a little spiel on remote creativity in general, where we had some artists and students talk a bit about how they're staying creative now, some of the challenges that they're facing, and some of the ways that they're getting through. And 2 weeks from now, we are going to be joined actually by Shelby Rossler. She is a Boston Conservatory at Berklee student, and you might have seen a video that she created. It went viral over this last week, which was this virtual orchestra, including over 70 Boston Conservatory and Berklee students doing a rendition of What the World Needs Now. She uploaded it, and I think it has over 1.4 million views on YouTube, and hit the world, and certainly what the world needs now is music and art. So I'm excited for her to join us in 2 weeks to talk a little bit about remote collaboration and ways that artists are using digital tools to connect and create despite this new reality that we're in. So I'm excited to be doing this with George. Bree has been our tech and operations guru, making everything run smoothly. So Bree Tagliaferro is our graduate fellow. Thank you, Bree. And then we've had a bunch of students joining us. And today we've got a great group. Today we are going to be talking about RAIDAR, which I still don't remember what it stands for. George, do you remember?
No, it doesn't matter. It can stand for whatever you want it to stand for. It's a repository for artists, information, data, and rights.
Authoritative something or other, exactly. So in its essence, what RAIDAR is a music licensing platform. It's direct creator to consumer. And this is something that we've now been cooking up for over a year. And George sent me a couple of slide decks from a year plus ago. And I think what was really cool that he remarked was that, you write things down and you imagine that something's going to happen, or you write down a plan. And I'm a big believer in sort of putting ideas into words and then sort of the power of them actualizing themselves. And a year later, here we are, and we have something to share with you, and I'm excited to get into that. So George and I are going to talk a bit about sort of what RAIDAR is, where it came from. We're going to show you a little bit of the back end. And then importantly, we're going to hear from a couple of students who've been involved, and I'm going to highlight a little bit of the student work in general. And then we'll do a bit of a demo so you can see where we're at, and we'll talk about next steps and how we're hoping people can link in and get involved as we move forward. So George, you want to give us a little bit of the genesis story
Sure.
of this? I know that, you sort of cooked it up about a year ago in Los Angeles, but I know it's also sort of been born out of a lot of the work you've been doing with open music for a while.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. And it's so great to have these moments of connection. So thank you for organizing this. And I hope everybody is doing as well as you can be doing during these times. Somebody tweeted out, and it's hit me like a ton of bricks, that companies and people's kind of true selves come out during crises, and so it's really interesting to watch how people are responding to this in different ways. And I've been heartened by my students and colleagues, and just the way that we as a species, I suppose, are working through this. For me, I'm a big believer, as anybody who knows me, in the kind of idea of purpose, not product. And my dominant purpose has always been to try to help artists create sustainable careers on their own terms. As we've watched income for artists shrink materially from the days of recorded music sale to streaming, we've needed really to try to find other avenues in which artists and creators can derive revenue so they can sustain. I think maybe no other time more than the present are we seeing that now. The vast majority of working musicians make 80–90% of whatever revenue they make from touring. Obviously, that's gone for the immediate future. Some of it will convert through live streaming and other things. So it's certainly important to be thinking about those, and also to be thinking about how habits are going to change for people once we finally get out of this space. I think people will reconsider the ways in which they consume music. But one thing I know that won't change, sadly, is that no customer will wake up and say, what I want to start doing is paying more for my subscription fee to Spotify or whatever. It's just not going to happen. And for a variety of reasons, there will be an ongoing downward pressure on the price of streaming services and music. So, when you're faced with those types of sort of immutable scenario, you have to look for other ways to expand the total addressable market for artists to make money. One of the ways in which many artists do make money is through the licensing of music into film and TV. However, that process is incredibly arduous, incredibly antiquated, and it's frustrated to me. And this is someone who I am a principal in a music licensing company, so I know the ins and outs of it very well. And in some respects, licensing of music into film and TV has become kind of the new radio. It's the way in which artists break at a time when it's increasingly hard to do it any other way. The goal of so much of my life and work has been to try to disintermediate and get rid of the layers of people that sit between the creators and the people that are actually putting the music out there. Music licensing generally is super antiquated. The analogy that I've always used is that licensing music into film and TV today is similar to booking travel in the 1970s, where if you wanted to take a trip somewhere, and I know that sounds like an abstraction today when none of us can take trips, but the challenges of booking travel in the 70s, 80s, even 90s, you'd spend all of your time on phone books and phone conversations. It's the same thing. So for us, we decided at Berklee that we have all of these creators, these remarkable young people who are making music either through their courses or on their own or what have you. And it was just incredible that no one on the other side of the market could actually get access to this music. So what Nicole and I did with our colleagues over at MIT, particularly in the connection science, is we started building a platform, a database, where Berklee students could begin uploading their works to the database. And then we went out and looked for people who might want to be, who would be interested and be good customers for that music. And in any environment, you have to have what's known as a two-sided market. And too often you have a supply side. You've got people that are putting music up all the time to various places, but you don't have people on the other end that are actually pulling it to the buy side. So we thought about who might be logical buyers of student music. And we went out to some various schools around Boston, film schools. So Lesley University, BU, all these film programs that have students that are trying desperately to get music into their student films, but there's no good source of that. That's you know, they're forced to go to kind of YouTube's free music library, which is not a terribly great service, or infringe on the works, meaning they take music without proper accreditation or licensing. So it's a fundamentally broken system. So surprise, surprise, the moment we went and talked to these film schools about this, they welcomed us with open arms, which was great. As an entrepreneur, I'm always looking for that kind of product market fit, that moment in time where you see that the solution that you've created actually has someone who needs it. And this thing has begun to grow kind of exponentially in the sense that we've got lots of musicians at Berklee that are beginning to put their works up, and an increasing number of film schools that are eager to get their hands on this work. Most importantly, the growth is coming from the students themselves. This is not something that Nicole and I or anyone is having to push on people. So we believe we've got something here, and we believe it's the right thing to do. Personally, I also view this as a gesture in which I've been failing at this for decades now, but get better at teaching copyright law to musicians, right? Trying to get musicians to understand certain elements of their rights is a really tricky thing to do because it's an abstraction, and teaching abstractions is very hard. So this allows it to make it much more concrete and actually inject pedagogy into this. So that's the genesis of it. That's kind of where we are now. But I think, Nicole, it'd be good to hear from some students, and or that guy if he wants to come back and talk more, because
I think we'll feature him maybe just his whole session, definitely. So tune in for that, folks, because it sounded like a treat.
That sounded like a delight.
Yep. Well, thanks, George, and thanks for holding it down.
Yeah.
So I think that one of the things that for me sort of delights me the most about this project is, certainly it was an idea that George cooked up with various folks over the years and then started sort of putting into practice. But the minute that we turned this loose, we saw that it really resonated with students. And at one point in a lot of the sort of initial development, we had high school students all the way up to a retired former head of innovation with IBM, and all sorts of folks in between. And when you look at all of those people giving their time and energy and expertise, and everybody was sort of teaching everybody. There was points at which the high school student was sharing his expertise as a producer. And likewise, there was times when Irving Wladowski-Berger from IBM was able to share his perspectives in having brought together other complete industries and helping them interoperate together. So on top of that, this has been something that Berklee students, pretty much I think every class that George teaches, he talks about this. And my understanding is that there's always one or two students that come after class and say, hey, I'm really interested in this. How can I get involved? And so I know Aletta is on here, and she's been one of those students that's been super involved from the beginning. And
huge shout out to Aletta. She has been just amazing throughout all of this. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then on top of that, today we have two students that are going to talk a little bit about their perspective and why, when they heard about this, it struck them and was interesting to them. So let's hear from them, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the back end of this as well. Aizhou, would you be able to kick us off? I'm going to unmute you, and you should be good to go.
Hi.
Introduce yourself. So I first met you when you came on our Silicon Valley student trip, and you were awesome. But tell us a little bit about who you are, what you've been studying at Berklee, and your perspective on this, both when you found out about a month ago, and now that we're all home and isolating.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you guys so much for having me. My name is Emmy Aizhou Liu, and I'm a Chinese singer-songwriter and a composer. I'm in my last semester at Berklee, studying CWP. So I'm also very interested in music supervision and have been studying for it. The music that I composed have been used in advertising, jingles, and stings. And before I go into kind of the radar side of things, would it be okay if I show some of my work to you?
I would love
Please
that.
do. That's
Yes.
what this is all
So
about.
I'm gonna share my screen with y'all. Host disabled. Okay, can somebody enable me?
Yeah, we locked things down just a minute ago for
Why?
I mean, just because I'm a control freak, George, you know that. I need to have all the control. All right,
No,
give it a go now.
We should be good right now. Perfect. Share. Can people see my screen?
We
Yep,
sure can.
perfect.
Okay. Sorry. So let me go back to Zoom. I can't find you.
I think it's at the very top. Maybe.
Oh yes. Okay. Stop sharing. Okay. Can you see me?
Nicely done.
So tell us about that, Aizhou. Tell us about that piece.
Yes. So that was one of the custom music that I made for this fashion brand, Taiwanese fashion brand, for one of their spring campaigns last year. So it's a little bit about kind of the electronic side of the music that I do. And I feel like advertising is also a really important kind of source of people that, that need licensed music and needs custom music from composers. And it's a market that I think there are causing a lot of interest from Berklee students as well as creators. I think, so to go into RAIDAR a little bit and why it's of interest to me, and especially at this time, I think it's because that I, like many others, have find it really hard to challenge myself creatively, because I think it's really hard to, a lot of our creative energy, I think, come from other people through, various means of human contact and collaboration. I think because of the fact that we're in a social drought and in self-isolation, that it's really hard for me personally to channel that energy to create new things and stuff that kind of freshen me up as a creator. And also it's been really hard for me to personally reach out to others at a time like this to tell them about what I've been working on, and also sharing them kind of my portfolio. I think RAIDAR is super relevant, especially at this time to me, because the fact that it is able for me to bring my music onto a platform and for people to see it. So in one sense, it's a platform that I can showcase my work, and for people who need my work to have firsthand access into it. RAIDAR is really, really meaningful, I think, in my perspective, because it's a platform that's pro musicians. And if we comparing to, I think, what we already know about what's available in the sync market, as what George said earlier, I think it's very meaningful because I think it's a transparent market where I feel like the filmmakers and the people looking to license our music and the composers are able to interact with each other directly, as opposed to going through somebody who is the middleman to do the job. And it's, well, I think it's very important also, we get our own say about how much we're preparing to charge for each track, for if you want to license 30 seconds versus 1 minute, if you want to license like a vocal track or an instrumental track, we kind of have a say about how much, you know, music we're going to be charging and how much money we're going to be charging for the usage of our stuff. And we're also able to do this non-exclusively, which means we don't have to send our rights away to RAIDAR. And we can still have like kind of the ownership of what we created into other projects. So it's not something that will actually ever hurt us or limit us like creatively, or what we're able to get like for financial gains, like as George was saying. I think it's just gonna be a nice bonus for us on top of all the financial aspects that we currently have already. So, and I think the fact that we're able to retain our publishing rights are something that I think are going to interest a lot of composers. And that kind of transparency, I think what makes RAIDAR really unique to me as a creator, more than anything else.
Thank you,
thanks.
Aizhou. Thank you, man. That's a good testimonial there. Couldn't ask for more than that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And your music's amazing.
Thank you, guys. Also, my website is aizhoumusic.com. If anyone.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll share it out. Absolutely. Good for you. Self-promote.
Yes.
Well, thank you. And that's actually a good reminder for me to let everyone know that we're also going to be sharing links, you know, how to access RAIDAR, how to put your songs up there for Berklee students and alumni. Mm-hmm. If you want more information, how to get involved with open music, etc. We have a BerkleeICE Slack where we've sort of been using that as an anchor for these sessions. So I'm going to put that in the comments. There's no swears or racial slurs in that URL, as opposed to some of the other comments in there. And we'll make sure that Aizhou's website and other links are on there as well.
Thanks.
So yeah, thank you. So now I'm going to welcome another student who I think found out about this a bit ago. And Emmy, I'm going to unmute you. And would you be able to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, when you first heard about this, why was it meaningful? But then especially now as we're all home and as your creative connections have changed a little bit, why is RAIDAR meaningful, and how's it been going as a creative?
Yeah, well, first off, while we're on the subject, you can follow me on Instagram, _Emmy_Marks_, which I could write out, that's very confusing. But I'm Emmy. I am a 5th semester music business and songwriting major. You know, having a lot of free time lately with everything going on, I've been doing a lot of reflecting on, you know, how I can grow individually and how I can create positive changes and impacts. And, you know, I think everybody's been kind of thinking about that lately, and that's been an underlying thing as of recently, especially as a community. And one thing I really love about RAIDAR, and this has become a lot more prevalent in, you know, recent times, just that it's very much a community effort, and it's very much a passion project among people who feel very strongly about it. Personally, for me, you know, as a music business student and as a songwriter and as a self-managed artist and someone who's doing marketing and social media and all of this stuff, it is very hard nowadays to just kind of have everything in one little package that makes everything so much more convenient. And, you know, RAIDAR is created by students and faculty and, you know, whoever else, volunteers, you know, that are super passionate about it, who have been throwing themselves into this project. And since everything's gone online, we've all, I feel like, been focusing on it kind of more just to, you know, have something to do. And not only that, but it's something that we all want to continue to grow, and we don't want to let anything going on lately, you know, impact what work we're trying to do. And we feel it's important work. I feel it's important work, you know, bringing more transparency and bringing more convenience to the Berklee population, to people who want to get their music license for film projects, for video projects, for video game projects. You know, it's you know, a project that comes out of love, and I feel like that's very rare nowadays. And I feel like, you know, that's it. Yeah, like that has just been a very good thing. That's come out of everything. And, you know, we hope that as students of the population of Berklee, you utilize it as much as possible. We have put a lot of work into it. We trust that people will want to contribute, whether that's volunteering or submitting music, but please, like, don't be afraid to get involved on it. I recommend getting involved on it. I've had a lot of fun doing it, so yeah.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that that's, and you sort of mentioned this, it's a great transition and important to sort of point out that this has been designed with students, for students, and, you know, with artists, for artists. And one of the most important pieces, as you mentioned, Emmy, is for us to get more songs. So I believe that another student is maybe going to be brought in. Obviously, we locked stuff down a little bit. So, but Aizhou, I know that you know him as well. So, Bree, can you unmute Aizhou?
He has trouble logging in right now, and
Right.
we're trying to
we're
solve
gonna
the issues. But
Yeah.
he said it was okay to play his music.
Awesome. So right now, one of the biggest pushes that George and I and other members of the team are doing is getting more songs. We have a goal of 500 songs by mid-June, and we need all your help. But here's one of the pieces, and I think that this gives an example of the type of work that we have on here. So I'm gonna share this briefly. Bree, can you co-host?
Yes. All right. So this is a song that was submitted by one of the students, and I'm going to play you just a little bit of it. Starts out a little bit quiet. So you get the idea.
And
I'm muted. Phase issues notwithstanding, if people can't hear that in film or TV, you know, I don't know what's wrong with it. I think that's so amazing.
yeah, 100%. So the last thing I'd like to do with George is give you a little bit of a glimpse into the back end. And so we're going to sort of dive into the technology a little bit. There's a lot more information on the Open Music website. So if you go to open-music.org, and I'll put that here in the comments as well. There's white papers on the tech. There's a write-up for folks that are not technologists. But for me, I think one of the things that's the most exciting, and I think that the students were getting at this as well, is the direct to consumer, creator to consumer connections and the control and transparency that students have. So we're creating something that's open source. The data is going to be something that's owned by the students. So if students are putting their identity data as artists or are putting their songs in there, all of that information about the licensing of their songs, the metadata, et cetera, that's information that they get to control and that they get to access. The same is true for the usage. All of that information is going to be available to artists to use for their own analytics. It's not going to be something that we as like a third party are controlling, because we have, other than supporting our students and other artists to be successful and to have successful careers, that's our main motivator. We don't have a motivator to sell or monetize the data in other ways. So having said that, I'm gonna first show you, and I like this for a couple of different reasons. One, I think it shows the fact that this is a complicated process. And so let me show you a little bit of what the education process is looking like. And George, feel free to jump in as I'm sharing these as well. All right, let me share my screen.
Yeah, well, Nicole's doing that. As I mentioned in my little ramble, I see this as much as a vehicle for helping educate both the student creators and the people that are licensing music about the different elements of music copyright. I mean, it's always been astonishing to me that people are not fluent in their assets with respect to the songs that they create. And as I was saying, you're not going to make money as a student from streaming for the most part. So you really need to understand your rights that that you immediately receive upon creating a work, and then also understand how to protect yourself. So over time, we'll build this into like a quiz that people will have to kind of take before they're able to upload or download music into the system. And this is just a wireframe. It's in the early stages, obviously, but it does show you the complexities and the aspirations that we're doing here to try to make sure that people fully understand the rights around our music.
So this was sketched out by Megan Godette. She's, we're talking about sort of this created by student artists and by artists for artists. Megan has a degree in computer science and then went to Berklee Valencia and did a master's in music production, tech, and innovation. And we were fortunate enough to get her involved in this as well. So she has been doing a lot of the back-end development of this. And so what you see here is something she shared with George and I yesterday, I believe. And this is a mock-up of what that education is going to look like. So as students go through, I think one of the things, and I equate this to TurboTax or Squarespace, for example, when you go into TurboTax or when you go to Squarespace, you likely aren't using those platforms because you're great at tax code, or because you're a really experienced web developer. You use them because you need a plug and play platform that allows you to do something that used to be really complex and that people have built sort of wraparounds for that then make it easier. And what I the reason I equate that to this is that, as you're going through TurboTax or as you're going through Squarespace, they ask, do you want to do X or Y? And you're like, I have no idea. I don't know how to know whether I want to do X or Y. I don't know what X or Y even are. And so you click on it and it says, well, this is what this is. And then you're able to make an informed decision. So not only does it make it easier, but it also educates you as you go along. And I think that one of the pieces that's exciting about this is that RAIDAR is going to do the same thing for music licensing. So it's going to give you control over how you price your music. It's going to give you control over how you describe it, but it's also going to tell you why those things are important and how to think about it. So this is an example of what some of those education pieces are going to look like. And as student users want to get online and want to be a part of this, they are going to be met with this first splash page, and then they're going to need to know what a controlled composition is. I know everybody's on mute, but does anybody know what a controlled composition is? George, you can't answer. Show of hands, anyone? All right, Jack, Emmy. Nice. All right, Tristan, maybe? Nope. All right, well, when you come to, Aletta knows. Cool. So a controlled composition is when it was composed and recorded by the same person, or when the copyright for that composition and recording are held by the same person. And these are going to be the types of educational materials that you're going to need to know and that you're going to learn through RAIDAR. And you can see some additional sort of back-end work. The last piece I'd like to share is a demo of what this is actually going to look like. Can everybody see that? Can I get a thumbs up? Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yes.
All right, so this is a screen capture of where we're at right now and what the experience is going to look like. So here you can see a white labeled version of the Berklee facing side. So right now we're rolling it out, and George, I think after this, the last piece I'd love for you to touch on is sort of the bigger open music vision, rolling out past,
Sure,
beyond Berklee and Leslie.
Yes.
So for the Berklee student side, they're going to see this and they're going to log on with their Berklee credentials. And again, I think what's great about that is that right now we have proof of identity because we know that they're affiliated with Berklee or with Leslie. So we're able to identify and make sure that the person who says that they're Nicole really is Nicole because somebody else has already certified that. But what's great is that we're not depending on a third party company to give their data over or for students to have to give us their data. So right now, this is where we're working. They certify that that's themselves. This is Megan's information, so she puts it in. And here she is, she's gonna upload a song. So here's basic information. Now keep in mind that on the consumer side, when the Leslie student or the film student is searching for the song, they're not gonna know that the song title is Engines and Emotions. So while Megan's putting in information that's important to her about the song, the songwriter, if there's an artist name that's different from the songwriter name, genre, mood, and then she can tag it with all types of words, whatever she wants, length, beats per minute. And we also have some basic DDEX fields here as well that tie into the digital data exchange standards so that as this connects to other platforms, those tracks will be easily identifiable and the important metadata, the producer and the engineer will be captured. So the artist puts their music in. And as we've been going through this, one of the things that we have been learning and trying to thread the needle of is how to get the important data without it being so much data that it becomes cumbersome and somebody just puts in, X, 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 X just to get through because, we want good data in so that it can be useful moving forward. So that is the consumer side. They put it in the track. You can upload a high quality version. It will then be watermarked and made available for the Leslie student. So now this is on the Leslie side. The film student searches for their music. They want something with an underwater vibe. They find it, they can preview it. Again, that's a downgraded watermarked version. They will be able to do that. One of the things that we found was really important to film students was for them to be able to play it against their film piece and make sure that it matches their needs. And then they purchase it, put in their very real credit card information. Feel free to steal that. It's completely true and real. And they license a song and then they can download that version. And that's it. So George, right now we're working with Leslie and they've been awesome partners. And I think it's worth mentioning that not only are their film students going to be working with us, but they also have a UX design team of students that have been helping design some of those pieces going from paper and pen into real web design. Can you talk a little bit about open music and the open music connection
Yes.
and what comes next?
Yes, thanks. So, as I said, the goal of this is to expand out from student filmmakers into all sorts of other applications that can be revenue generative for Berklee student composers. And I would also add that it's Berklee alums as well. But it's not purely, the code can be open source, but access to the RAIDAR database, we believe, needs to be consistent with the values of the Open Music Initiative, which is a value of transparency, interoperability, etc. So the members of the Open Music Initiative, of which anyone can sign up for free currently, as long as they sign the memorandum of understanding that explicitly states what their values are, they will be the ones, not Nicole, I, or anyone else, who decides who has access to this database as it grows and scales. There will be some companies that we don't feel align with the values of interoperability and transparency, and those people will not be able to access these Berklee students' work. And that way, OMI becomes sort of what's known in the industry as kind of a caretaker or a validator of the truth of the database and who has access to it. So that's how we see this growing forward and making sure that it's very, very purpose and values led and not just becomes commoditized like every other music licensing platform out there.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I want to thank everyone who is on there. Does anyone, yeah, before we sign off, does anyone have any other questions that we didn't get to touch on?
Okay, well, you know where to find us, and it'll be 2 weeks before the next one, right, Nicole?
Yeah, we'll be doing the next one with Shelby. We'll be talking about remote collaboration and collaboration sort of across the digital realm. So please tune in. Emmy, Aizhou, Aletta, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing. Tristan, thank you as always for the
playing us in
musical intro.
Compose a theme for us, Tristan.
Tristan, I'm gonna get in touch, or maybe you can get in touch with George. We'd love to have you officially kick us off in 2 weeks. So let's plan for it. Drop us a line, and
it's got to be so heavy, 7-string guitar, drop D tuning. It's got to be super heavy, man.
And I'm gonna invite my 6-year-old who will be able to appreciate that on a whole other level.
Thank you all. Take good care of yourselves. Reach out if we can do anything for any of you all in whatever way that might be.
Thanks all. Stay healthy. Take care.
Bye. Bye.